And it is rare, I know, for the guys to get any sort of breaking news that comes out at, for in Pacific time, 5 o'clock in the morning here. But we had a report come through about 10 minutes ago or so from The Athletic regarding Russell Wilson and a few things that he apparently wanted to have happen during his time in Seattle.
Yeah, so courtesy of The Athletic, I feel like multiple of their reporters, it just says by Athletic staff, but here is the report. Before the Seahawks traded Russell Wilson to the Broncos, he requested the team fire Pete Carroll and general manager John Schneider. That, according to league sources, they told The Athletic. And here's how the article breaks down, Stormy. It says, Wilson was convinced that Carroll and Schneider were inhibiting his quest to win additional Super Bowls and individual awards, according to league sources who spoke to The Athletic on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the details. The quarterback had preferred a replacement in mind.
And here's the kicker.
Sean Payton, who had just stepped down as the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. Wilson placed his request to fire the coach and GM in February of 2022. Within days of his call, top team officials met and decided to pursue trading Russell Wilson, according to sources. And now, of course, Payton and Wilson are together in Denver.
So he ended up getting what he wanted out of the situation, I guess, in the end, a year removed from, although the entire, I feel like, go ahead.
And no, and what I would say is, right now, a year into it, it feels like the Seattle Seahawks
won that massively.
Made the right decision right from the jump. They have the Broncos' first-round pick this year. They got it last year. They'll have it next year. Geno Smith we'll see what he is this upcoming year, but was, comeback player of the year, emerged as a Pro Bowler. So,
whereas Russ, meanwhile, has failed a 5-12 season his first year in Denver, and his head coach got fired out of it.
And signed a massive deal with massive cap implications. We'll see ultimately what the Seahawks decide to do there in the with Geno Smith. But yeah, this is really interesting. And are you of the belief that Sean Payton heading into Denver can get Russell Wilson back to what he once was in Seattle? He's never been a league MVP, has been a Pro Bowler, I think 9 or 10 times, obviously won a Super Bowl. And, for a long stretch there, he was one of the more frightening quarterbacks from the betting side to bet against because he was just always in games. And this year, it just felt like completely overvalued in the betting market. This was a team that took a ton of, preseason Super Bowl futures and, of course, didn't even make the playoffs.
Well, and that's the big question, right, is will Sean Payton, quote unquote, fix Russell Wilson and get him back to what he once was, as you put it? I am not particularly confident that that's going to happen, just because we saw so much this past year that wasn't just like scheme driven that he was failing, right? Like a lot of it was because he just, whether it was connectivity with his receivers or whatever, he was just off and he was unable to produce, particularly in the red zone, which is that's not what we've grown to expect from Russell Wilson, period, throughout the course of his career. Like, let Russ cook was a thing that we were saying in a positive way, not making fun of for a long time for a reason, because he did have that. And so I like that Sean Payton has come in right off the top and he's, put his foot down that Russell Wilson is not in charge and that Russell Wilson's not going to have his own outside quarterback coach, and that, the things that he's been kind of knocked for of having his own office in the facility and not being around the guys. I think that's something that can change through Sean Payton.
Look,
and maybe that'll make a difference on the field.
I, for one, don't like to associate with other people. So, I have an office and you guys, go into it. No, it is his office on the second floor and, everyone else on the first floor, the dynamic, all of that stuff. Like, Russell Wilson has always kind of seemed a bit, I'll say, calculated in a lot of the way that he goes about it. Remember a couple of years ago, he went on the Dan Patrick show and kind of threw his offensive line under the bus. It's just, he's always one step ahead, it feels like, and the whole Broncos Nation let's ride. But what's interesting is you got this story brewing, and did you see yesterday who the Broncos hired as their quarterback coach? Davis Webb, who is 6 years Russell Wilson's junior. So that'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. Davis Webb, who was Daniel Jones's backup, is reportedly going to be the Broncos' new quarterback coach. He's 28 years old. Russell Wilson is 34 years old. So I don't know how that dynamic will play out. I mean, ultimately, Sean Payton's the boss. It's all that matters. But.
And to be fair, Sean McVay did exist as a very young head coach with older players. And, it's not like that's never happened before. Even you see the coordinator who's come up from the Eagles, who's on the younger side. He's 37 years old.
Steichen?
So, yeah.
So, Colts head coach now.
So, these things happen. That's fine. I'm just
fresh off the field, though.
It's just this report, though, is just really interesting to me because we knew there was dysfunction in Seattle. That was clear. We knew Russ was unhappy. And at least from my perspective, from the outside looking in, I thought that was because Pete Carroll and the offense weren't utilizing him properly, weren't utilizing him to his strengths. That's why I thought when he came to Denver that would flip the switch, and he's got a great defense backing him up. He's got weapons in the pass game. Things could really open up the AFC here, and they could be a contender for the division. Clearly, we saw that crash and fail. But I don't know if Sean Payton is the answer or not. Maybe because he's so excited about Sean Payton, that'll change his attitude and that'll kind of change his approach.
Well, and I, on a nightly basis, I sit next to the Sean King, who especially when it comes to quarterbacks and his analysis of coaches in the NFL, I'll take his word over a lot of people's. And he said it last year and really sticks by it that Sean Payton is the best play caller in the NFL. You look at how poorly Russell Wilson played last year, career lows in touchdowns, completion percentage, just threw 3,500 yards. Look, Nathaniel Hackett was clearly in over his head. We saw that from week 1 when he settled for a 61-yard field goal instead of trying to push the ball a little bit with Russell Wilson. So we'll see how it all plays out. But, once again, this story coming out, how last year unfolded, Stormy, it feels like as of right now, Seattle absolutely is in the winning side of this trade.
Well, and I'm somebody that after they lost Russ, and they
were thought to be the worst team in the NFL.
That's what I was going to say. You think all of the things about Geno Smith prior to what we know we saw on the field this year. And I was very much so of the camp. It's Seattle is going to win 4 games, maybe. That's how I thought. And I was so happy to be proven wrong. Enough to where I want Geno Smith. I want guys like that to have success and to show up and show out. Not enough to win the division, which they didn't. So thank goodness for that. Go Niners. But I thought it was cool that Seattle was able to turn things around and wake up without Russ.
Yeah, and just more different reports coming out. So another one regarding this, it does say that right now it looks like the Broncos players are getting behind Russell Wilson here. So the Athletic spoke to more than 15 Broncos players, coaches, and staffers during the 2022 season. Some were granted anonymity to speak freely about sensitive topics. Many of these interviews described a team without direction, a first-team head coach who was too accommodating, an inexperienced coaching staff around him, and a star quarterback who failed to live up expectations after getting what he wanted. So, this is Sean Payton's knew what he was walking into, and now, Nathaniel Hackett was clearly the wrong hire for a franchise who made this big-time trade. And when you're living in this neighborhood, which is, Justin Herbert out in Los Angeles, who is not maybe fully lived up to expectations, but the talent is there, and they bring in Kellen Moore to run their offense, which I think some people see as a big positive moving forward. Oh, yeah, Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs just won another Super Bowl, and he won another MVP. Las Vegas certainly seems like they're in a bit of a downward trend here, unless they go out and convince Aaron Rodgers out of the darkness that he's going to be a Las Vegas Raider. Doesn't seem like that is likely, and I know the Jets have reached out to the Packers about potentially trading for Aaron Rodgers, but yeah, it's it does feel like a buy low opportunity, but we'll see. This is he's got a big contract behind him, and that always takes some maneuvering to put a lot proper talent around him.
Yeah, the thing with on the Aaron Rodgers side of things is that I feel like hasn't really been acknowledged a ton is that if you get Derek Carr, you just have to pay him. If you get Aaron Rodgers, you're giving up assets.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's something that we can get into a little bit later in the show. One last thing, just to round out the Russell Wilson and the Broncos situation. This is a Denver team that has felt like for so long they're a quarterback away because they have had all of the other pieces.
Yep.
They thought when they got Russ that was what was going to happen. That's why they paid him. That's why they took that on. They have had, Denver, 12 starting quarterbacks since Peyton Manning. 12. That's how many they've gone through. So we'll see if Sean Payton and that connection with Russell Wilson in 2023 is the answer and can get them over the hump, because it is a crying shame to put that defense to waste. Dun, dun, dun.
That's why you pay Sean Payton as much money as you did.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.